They found her in the forgotten places, where starlight doesn't reach and hope goes to die. She was curled against a service vent on sublevel 9, shivering in a torn dress that might have once been worth more than the entire station, her silver skin dimmed to the color of ash. Above, in the polished corridors where important people made important decisions, no one noticed. No one cared. But Marcus Chin always worked the forgotten places. And in those places he'd learned to see what others couldn't. Before we start, subscribe now so you don't miss more incredible stories like this one. Marcus had been invisible for 3 years. Not literally, though sometimes he wondered if that might be easier. The kind of invisible where people looked through you, where your presence registered as furniture, where your voice carried no weight. He cleaned the messes others made, worked the shifts no one wanted, and endured the mockery that came with being the station's favorite punching bag. Station Director Vance made sure of that. Oh, and before we dive in, tell us in the comments, where are you watching this video from? We love hearing from you and always read every message. The night it happened, Marcus was doing what he always did, cleaning corridors that stretched like metal veins through Arcturus Station's lower levels. His shift started at 2,200 hours and ended when the work was done, which usually meant dawn bled through the observation ports before he saw his tiny quarters again. He'd been an engineer once. A good one. But when his supervisor's calculation error nearly killed 6 people during a pressure seal installation, Marcus had made a choice. He took the blame. He signed the reports. He accepted the demotion that followed like a sentence. His supervisor got promoted. Marcus got a mop. That was 3 years ago. 3 years of, "Hey janitor, you missed a spot." 3 years of laughter echoing behind him in hallways. 3 years of Director Vance's particular brand of cruelty, the kind that came wrapped in politeness, in public humiliation disguised as constructive criticism. Chin. Vance's voice had cut through the corridor just hours before Marcus found her. Did you think filing trash receptacles was optional? Or are you just incompetent? 15 people in the hallway. 15 witnesses to another small death of dignity. Marcus had nodded, apologized, corrected his mistake. Same dance, different day. By 0300 hours, the station settled into its graveyard shift rhythm. The transport hub above processed ships every hour, but down here in sublevel 9, silence was a living thing. Marcus preferred it. Silence didn't judge. He was emptying a waste chute near service corridor 9C when he heard it. Not quite a sound. More like the absence of sound, the way space goes quiet right before something breaks. Marcus paused, listening. There, again. A soft, desperate intake of breath. The kind of sound someone makes when breathing itself hurts. He found her crumpled beside vent access 47, where waste heat from the reactor recyclers created a pocket of warmth. In the dim emergency lighting, her skin looked like tarnished silver, and her dress, torn, stained, but unmistakably expensive, pooled around her like liquid moonlight. She was maybe 19, maybe younger. And she was freezing. Marcus didn't think. Thinking was dangerous. Thinking led to questions like, why is an alien girl in formal wear collapsed in my service corridor? And should I report this? Thinking led to involvement, and involvement led to trouble. He shrugged off his maintenance coat, the faded blue one with his name stitched over the pocket, the one that smelled like cleaning solution and long shifts, and draped it over her shoulders. She didn't wake. But her shivering eased just slightly. Hey, Marcus said softly, crouching beside her. Can you hear me? Her eyes fluttered. Violet. He'd never seen eyes that color, like nebulas compressed into irises. Cold, she whispered. The universal translator embedded in the station's systems rendered her words in standard English, but beneath it, he heard something else. Music maybe. Or mathematics. So, cold. I know. Marcus glanced around. Protocol said report any unauthorized persons immediately. Protocol also said Marcus had already been written up twice this month. Protocol he decided could wait. Can you stand? She couldn't. When Marcus tried to help her up, her legs buckled like they'd forgotten their purpose. She weighed almost nothing, alarming nothing, the kind of nothing that came from too many days without food. There was a supply closet nearby, one Marcus had quietly converted into something almost comfortable during his 3-year exile. A chair someone had thrown out. A small heating unit he'd repaired. A coffee maker that only worked if you hit it at the right angle. He half carried her there, her silver skin cold even through his uniform shirt. What's your name? He asked, easing her into the chair. Lyra. Her voice was barely a whisper. I'm very lost. Yeah, Marcus said, flipping on the heating unit. I know something about that. Little did either of them know that this moment, this small act of kindness in a forgotten corner of space, would shatter empires and rewrite the rules of power itself. But that understanding was still hours away. For now there was just a cold girl and a warm coat. And sometimes that's enough. To understand what happened next, you need to understand what brought Lyra to that service corridor. What made a princess run? What made her choose death in the cold void of space over the gilded cage of her birthright? The Aurelian Empire stretched across 3 galaxies, controlled 73% of the quadrant's quantum fuel reserves, and possessed wealth that made planetary economies look like pocket change. The Stellarion royal family had ruled for 800 years, maintaining power through strategic marriages, calculated alliances, and the kind of ruthless pragmatism that turned daughters into diplomatic assets. Lyra was the youngest, the spare, the one they could afford to sacrifice. "You'll marry Prince Xandros of the Vex Consortium," her mother, Empress Callista, had announced 3 months before. Not asked. Announced. "The merger will secure our mining interests in the Outer Rim for generations." Lyra had met Prince Xandros once. He collected rare species like trophies and spoke about other beings the way someone might describe furniture. He was twice her age and had already had 2 wives. Both had disappeared under mysterious circumstances. "I won't," Lyra had said. The Empress's smile could have cut steel. "Won't isn't a word in your vocabulary, daughter. You'll learn." So Lyra did what trapped things do when the cage door stays closed. She found another door. The palace had launch bays and launch bays had small craft. Lyra had been flying simulations since she was 6. Royal children learned everything, mastered nothing. She stole a diplomatic shuttle during the night cycle, override codes provided by a sympathetic guard who'd watched her grow up. She made it 200 light years before the navigation system failed. 300 before the life support started flickering. By the time she crashed on Arcturus Station's outer platform, using every ounce of skill to avoid detection, she'd been running for 8 days. 8 days without proper food. Without sleep. Without her family's resources or protection. The crash landing destroyed the shuttle. Marcus would later find the wreckage. Himself, hidden in the station's industrial scrapyards, and left Lyra alone, hunted, and desperate. She'd wandered the station for 2 days before hypothermia and starvation finally claimed her. In the supply closet, Marcus watched Lyra wrap trembling hands around the mug of terrible coffee he'd brewed. She drank it like it was the finest wine in the Empire, which, in a way, it was. Survival made everything taste better. "When's the last time you ate?" Marcus asked. Lyra thought for a moment. 4 days? Maybe 5. I lost track. Marcus's jaw tightened. He pulled his lunch pack from the shelf, synthetic protein bar, dehydrated fruit packet, and the instant noodles Jamie from the cafeteria always snuck him. It wasn't much. It was all he had. "Here." Lyra stared at the offered food like it might be a trap. That's yours. I can eat later." A lie. His shift ended in 3 hours, and the cafeteria wouldn't open for another 2 after that. "Please." She ate slowly at first, then faster, then with the kind of desperate hunger that made Marcus's chest ache. He turned away, giving her privacy in the only way that mattered. "Thank you," she whispered when she finished. "You don't know what this means." "I know what hungry feels like," Marcus said quietly. "That's enough." For a moment they sat in comfortable silence. Then Marcus's comm unit chirped. "Chin." Director Vance's voice crackled through. "Where the hell are you? Section 7B has a waste overflow. Stop lounging and fix it. Now." Marcus winced. "I have to go," Lyra said. "I'll be fine. I'll stay here until..." "Until what?" Marcus cut in gently. "You're hiding." "From what?" Lyra's violet eyes met his. In them, Marcus saw something he recognized intimately, the look of someone who'd made a choice they couldn't take back. Someone who'd burned their bridges and was still feeling the heat. "From people who want to put me in a cage," she said finally. "A very nice cage. But still a cage." Marcus understood that too. "Stay here," he said, standing. "I'll be back in an hour. Don't go anywhere." But when Marcus reached Section 7B, he walked into an ambush. Vance stood there with 3 other administrators, all wearing expressions that said Marcus had done something wrong before he'd even arrived. The waste overflow was minor, something that required 10 minutes, not an emergency response team. This wasn't about waste overflow. "Chin," Vance said, drawing out the name. "I've been reviewing your performance records." Marcus said nothing. Experience taught silence. 17 complaints this quarter. Tardiness, incomplete work, attitude problems. Vance clicked his tablet, displaying a report. Except Marcus knew those numbers were fabricated. He kept his own logs, documented every shift, every task completed. That's not, Marcus started. Are you contradicting me? Vance stepped closer, voice dropping to that dangerous register. Because it seems like you think you're special. Like rules don't apply to you. Like maybe you're better than your position. The other administrators watched, silent witnesses to a familiar play. No, sir, Marcus said flatly. Good. Because I'd hate to think our janitor was getting ideas above his station. Pun intended. Vance smiled. The waste overflow has spread to sub-level 9. You'll work through your end of shift to clean it. Unpaid overtime, naturally. Consider it corrective action. Sub-level 9. Where Lyra was hiding. But, unless there's a problem? Vance's eyebrows rose. Because if you're unable to complete assigned duties, Chin, maybe we need to discuss whether you're fit for any position on this station. Checkmate. Marcus worked through the next 4 hours in a haze of anger and worry. Every moment that passed was a moment Lyra was alone, vulnerable, possibly discovered. Vance supervised personally, finding new tasks, new criticisms, stretching the work into punishment. By the time Marcus finally returned to the supply closet, his entire body ached and his shift clock read 0847 hours. 14 hours straight. The closet was empty. His coat lay folded neatly on the chair, but Lyra was gone. Panic hit him like decompression, sudden, breathless. Where would she go? Did someone find her? Was she safe? Marcus found the answer an hour later. She'd made it to the cafeteria on level 4, drawn by the smell of food. Jamie spotted her first, Marcus's only real friend, a cafeteria worker who'd been kind when kindness wasn't required. Jamie had given Lyra a tray of breakfast scraps, asked no questions. But other people had questions. Marcus arrived to find Lyra surrounded by 6 station security officers and Director Vance, who looked like he'd won the lottery. No identification, Vance was saying loudly, making sure everyone in the cafeteria heard. No clearance. No credits. This station has protocols and trespassing is a serious offense. Lyra stood frozen, terrified, the tray of food still in her hands. She's with me, Marcus said, pushing through the crowd. Every head turned. With you? Vance's laugh was theatrical. Chin, this girl is clearly a runaway or worse. You're harboring an illegal. She's my guest. Marcus moved to Lyra's side, saw relief flood her features. I found her disoriented, offered temporary quarters. That's not illegal. Your quarters? Vance's eyes glittered. You mean the supply closet you've been squatting in? The one that's station property? The one you're not authorized to use for habitation? The crowd murmured. Marcus felt the weight of judgment, familiar as his own skin. I'll take responsibility, Marcus said quietly. Let her go. Fine me, write me up, whatever you need to do. But she hasn't done anything wrong. That's not your call to make, janitor. Vance nodded to security. Take her to holding until we sort this out. No. Lyra's voice rang out, stronger than Marcus expected. She stepped forward, placing herself between Marcus and the security team. He did nothing wrong. He saved my life. Dramatic, Vance sneered. Who even are you? Lyra's jaw set. Marcus saw the moment she decided. The moment the princess emerged from behind the frightened girl's mask. Someone who knows exactly what you are, she said clearly. A small man with a small amount of power, wielding it to feel larger. I've met 1,000 like you. You're the same across every species, every station, every empire. And you're all equally pathetic. The cafeteria went silent. Vance's face turned purple. You little? Enough. The security chief, a grizzled woman named Torres, stepped between them. She looked at Lyra, really looked, and something in her expression shifted. I'll handle this. Director Vance, I believe your presence is no longer required. I'm the station director. And I'm head of security. This is my jurisdiction now. Torres's tone left no room for argument. Vance left, but his parting glare at Marcus promised retribution. Torres took them to her office, a cluttered space full of old coffee cups and security monitors. She sat behind her desk, studying them both. So, she said, want to tell me what's really going on? Marcus opened his mouth, but Lyra spoke first. I'm running from an arranged marriage. I crashed on the station 6 days ago and have been hiding since. Marcus found me, fed me, asked for nothing in return. That's the truth. Torres drummed her fingers on the desk. Arranged marriage. Let me guess, wealthy family, big politics, you're the sacrificial lamb? Something like that. And you? Torres looked at Marcus. Why help her? Marcus thought about it. Because no one else did. Torres studied him for a long moment, then sighed. Look, I can give you both 24 hours. After that, I have to file a report. This station is small and word travels fast. If someone's looking for her. She shrugged. I can't protect you from that. Thank you, Lyra breathed. Don't thank me yet. Torres stood. 24 hours. Then this becomes official. Use them wisely. But what happened next would change everything, because the galaxy's most powerful family had just located their missing heir. And they were already on their way. 24 hours sounds like enough time until you're living it minute by minute. Marcus took Lyra to his actual quarters, a space barely larger than the supply closet but at least legal. It was in the lower-rent sector where maintenance workers lived, a warren of tiny rooms that smelled like recycled air and old sorrow. It's not much, Marcus said, suddenly embarrassed. The room held a narrow bed, a desk cluttered with old engineering manuals, and a small porthole that looked out on Arcturus Station's docking bays. It's perfect, Lyra said and meant it. She sat on the edge of his bed while Marcus made more terrible coffee. In the better lighting he could finally see her properly. The silver skin was returning to its natural luminescence, a soft glow that pulsed with her heartbeat. Her violet eyes held depths that seemed to go on forever. And beneath the torn dress, he could see delicate scars on her arms, the kind that came from courtly training, from learning to fight with ceremonial blades. She was beautiful in that dangerous way powerful things often are. Like nebulas or supernovas or the moment before warp engines engage. Marcus looked away. So, he said, handing her coffee. Arranged marriage. To a monster. Lyra wrapped her hands around the mug. My family sees it as a business arrangement. Me? I see it as a death sentence. Maybe not physical death, but the kind that happens slowly. Where you wake up one day and realize you've forgotten who you were. I know something about that, Marcus said quietly. She looked at him, then really looked. What happened to you? No one had asked that in 3 years. No one had cared enough to ask. So Marcus told her. About the engineering position, the calculation error, the choice to take the fall. About 3 years of humiliation, of being invisible, of Director Vance's systematic cruelty. About becoming a ghost in his own life. Why did you do it? Lyra asked. Take the blame? Because the person who made the mistake had 3 kids and a sick spouse. I had nothing to lose. Marcus laughed bitterly. Turned out I was wrong about that. You can always lose more. That's the most ridiculous thing I've ever heard, Lyra said. Marcus blinked. What? It's ridiculous. Stupid. Idiotic. But she was smiling, tears in those violet eyes. And the kindest thing anyone's ever told me. You sacrificed everything for someone who wouldn't have done the same for you. Just like you shared your only meal with a stranger. Just like you're risking your job to hide me. I'm not. You are kind, Marcus Chin. Profoundly, dangerously kind. The kind of kindness that changes things. She set down her mug, moved closer. In my world, kindness is weakness. It's something you exploit in others and never show yourself. But you're different. Marcus felt heat in his cheeks. I'm just a janitor. No, Lyra said firmly. You're just Marcus. And that's more than enough. They spent the next hours talking. Marcus showed her his engineering manuals, explained the modifications he'd made to station systems. Small improvements no one noticed, done during his shifts because he couldn't stop being an engineer even when they'd taken his title away. Lyra told him about growing up in a palace made of starlight, about tutors and protocol and the suffocating weight of expectation. About her older sister who'd married strategically and now lived in a loveless arrangement spanning solar systems. About watching her mother turn from a person into a position. I don't want that, Lyra whispered. I'd rather die as myself than live as what they need me to be. You won't have to die, Marcus said. We'll figure something out. Famous last words. The station-wide alarm cut through their conversation like a knife. Marcus's comm unit exploded with activity. Multiple frequencies, urgent chatter, the kind of chaos that only accompanied one thing. VIP arrival. Unscheduled. Marcus pulled up the station feed on his ancient terminal. The image made his blood run cold. 3 Imperial-class cruisers had just dropped out of hyperspace at the system's edge. Each one was the size of a city, bristling with weapons, painted in the gold and silver of the Aurelian Empire. The lead ship bore a seal Marcus recognized from history books, the personal flag of the Empress herself. No, Lyra breathed, seeing the display. No. They found me. How? I don't know. I was so careful, I used every trick She stopped, eyes widening. My biosignature. They must have tracked my biosignature through the station's security sweeps. I thought I had more time. Marcus's mind raced. The cruisers would dock within the hour. Once they boarded, finding Lyra would take minutes. And Marcus? He'd be lucky if they only arrested him. Hiding a princess, even accidentally, wasn't the kind of crime that ended with a slap on the wrist. We need to hide you better, Marcus said. Somewhere they won't think to look. They'll search everywhere. Everywhere. My mother doesn't do half measures. Then we need to make you unfindable. Marcus paced, thinking. Your biosignature, it's what, biological markers? Heat signature, DNA traces, quantum resonance. All of that. It's unique to Aurelian royals. They can track it anywhere within. Lyra paused. Wait, why are you asking? Marcus was already pulling up schematics on his terminal. Because I work in the one place on this station that scrambles every signal known to science. The reactor room. Quantum flux from the power cores creates interference that blocks everything: communications, sensors, biosignatures. It's why we have to use hardwired systems down there. You want to hide me in a reactor room? I want to hide you in the reactor room. Reactor 3 specifically. It's scheduled for maintenance shutdown in. Marcus checked. 40 minutes. It'll be offline for 6 hours, cool, safe, and completely invisible to any scan they run. Lyra stared at him. That's brilliant. Also insane. If they catch you. They won't catch me. I'm invisible, remember? Marcus grabbed his maintenance coat, the one he'd given her, the one that still smelled like her fear and his coffee. But we need to move now. And you need to trust me. I already do, she said. Getting to Reactor 3 meant navigating 5 levels through service corridors Marcus knew like his own heartbeat. The station was in chaos, security protocols activated, checkpoints established, everyone looking for something unusual. A janitor moving through his normal routes? That wasn't unusual at all. Marcus put Lyra in a maintenance cart, covered her with dirty cleaning supplies, and pushed her through the station like he did this every day. They passed 4 security checkpoints. At each one, Marcus nodded, showed his ID, made the same tired joke about glamorous janitorial work. No one looked twice. The reactor room access required credentials Marcus technically had, but wasn't supposed to use. His old engineering clearances, never properly revoked after his demotion. He'd discovered the oversight months ago, kept it quiet. Now it was their salvation. The door opened with a hiss. Reactor 3 was a cathedral of machinery, cooling towers 3 stories tall, conduits thick as ancient trees, the thrumming heartbeat of power that kept the station alive. The maintenance shutdown had already begun. The quantum flux was minimal but still enough to scramble signals. 6 hours, Marcus said, helping Lyra out of the cart. Stay in the observation bay, it's shielded, climate-controlled, safe. Don't touch anything. I'll come back before the reactor restarts. What if you can't? What if they stop you? They won't. Marcus squeezed her hand. I'm very good at being invisible. Leaving her there was the hardest thing Marcus had ever done. But as he sealed the reactor room and returned to the chaos of the station, he felt something he hadn't experienced in 3 years. Purpose. The Imperial delegation arrived exactly on schedule. Marcus watched from a maintenance alcove as the Empress herself swept through the docking bay, followed by an entourage of advisors, guards, and officials. She wore authority like other people wore clothing, impossible to separate from who she was. My daughter is on this station, the Empress announced, her voice carrying through the bay. Princess Lyra Stellaron. I'm offering a reward of 5 million credits to anyone who provides information leading to her safe return. 5 million credits. That was enough to buy a small ship. Enough to never work again. Enough to matter. Marcus felt eyes on him, station workers who knew he'd been in contact with an unidentified girl. Vance, watching from the crowd, his expression calculating. The princess may be frightened, the Empress continued. She may have told people she's running from danger. This is untrue. She's unwell, confused. Anyone hiding her is preventing her from receiving necessary medical treatment. I urge them to come forward. The message was clear. Comply or be complicit. Torres found Marcus an hour later. They're doing a full station sweep, she said quietly. Room by room. They have technology I've never seen, scanners that can detect biological signatures through bulkheads. Chin. Wherever she is, they'll find her. Not if she's somewhere they can't scan, Marcus said. Torres's eyes widened. You didn't. Reactor 3. Offline for maintenance, That's. Torres laughed despite herself. That's actually brilliant, but it only buys you 6 hours. Then what? I don't know yet. You need a plan, Chin. These aren't station security. These are Imperial forces. If they find out you've been hiding her, then I'll deal with it. Marcus met her eyes. I'm not turning her in. Even for 5 million credits? Especially for 5 million credits. Torres studied him for a long moment, then nodded. You're either the most stubborn man I've ever met or the most stupid. Maybe both. She glanced around, lowered her voice. The sweep will reach the reactor levels in 3 hours. I can maybe delay them an hour, but that's all. Whatever you're going to do, do it fast. Marcus had never planned a prison break before. He'd also never hidden an alien princess, so this was turning into a week of firsts. The problem was simple. They couldn't hide forever. The station was too small, the Empire's resources too vast. Eventually, Lyra would be found. Unless she didn't need to hide. The idea came to Marcus while he was mopping a corridor near the diplomatic suites. One of those moments of clarity that feels like the universe clicking into place. He abandoned his mop and ran. Jamie found him in the station's archives 20 minutes later, surrounded by ancient records. Dude, the entire station is looking for, what are you doing? Research. Marcus pulled up another file. Jamie, you know station law, right? I work in food service. Why would I? Just listen. This station is technically independent territory, right? Neutral ground. It has to be because it processes ships from 70 different political entities. Yeah, so there are laws about political asylum. Old ones from when the station was founded. If someone claims asylum on independent territory, they can't be forcibly removed unless they commit a crime. The station authority has to hear their case first. Jamie's eyes widened. You want her to claim asylum? It won't solve everything, but it'll buy time. Force them to negotiate. And if the station authority sides with her. Marcus trailed off, knowing it was a long shot. The station authority is Vance. Who hates you. Who wants you gone. I know. This is a terrible plan. I know that too. Jamie was quiet for a moment, then sighed. What do you need me to do? Little did they realize that miles above them, in the Imperial flagship, Empress Callista was making plans of her own. And those plans included ensuring Marcus Chin never became a problem again. The Empress summoned Director Vance to the Imperial flagship personally. It was the kind of summons that meant your life was about to change. The only question was whether it would change for better or worse. The flagship's interior made Arcturus Station look like a refugee camp. Everything gleamed, walls of polished crystal that captured and refracted light into permanent rainbows, floors that somehow felt alive beneath your feet, air that tasted like prosperity. Vance was escorted to a conference room where the Empress waited, attended by a single advisor, a thin man with calculating eyes named Counselor Thrace. Director Vance, the Empress said without preamble. You've been most helpful in coordinating our search. But I sense there's information you're not sharing. Vance swallowed. Your Majesty, I've provided everything. You've provided records. Data. Official reports. The Empress leaned forward. I'm asking for your instincts. Your understanding of this station's social dynamics. My daughter is here. Someone is hiding her. Who? This was the moment Vance had been waiting 3 years for. A chance to eliminate the one person who made him feel inadequate simply by existing. Marcus Chin, who never fought back, never complained, never stopped being quietly, infuriatingly better than Vance would ever be. There's a janitor, Vance said slowly. Marcus Chin. He was in contact with an unidentified girl yesterday. He claimed she was his guest, but. Counselor Thrace leaned in. But Chin has a history of martyrdom. 3 years ago, he took the fall for someone else's mistake. Lost everything. He has this pathological need to help people who don't deserve it. The Empress's expression didn't change. Where is he now? Working his shift. In the lower levels. Bring him to me. Finding Marcus was easy. Getting him to the flagship took 4 guards and a direct order from Torres, who gave Marcus an apologetic look as she placed him in custody. I'm sorry, she mouthed. Marcus just nodded. He'd known this was coming. The Empress received him in the same conference room with the same predatory focus. Up close, she looked like an older version of Lyra. Same silver skin, same violet eyes, but harder. Colder. Like someone had taken a flame and frozen it mid-burn. Marcus Chin, she said. Please sit. Marcus remained standing. Small rebellion, but his only one. I'll stand, thanks. Counselor Thrace bristled, but the Empress waved him down. As you wish. I'll be direct, Mr. Chin. Where is my daughter? I don't know what you're. Please don't insult my intelligence. You were seen with an unidentified girl. That girl matches my daughter's description. You subsequently hid her, refused to report her presence, and have actively obstructed this investigation. The Empress folded her hands. I'm offering you a choice. Marcus waited. Option 1. Tell me where Lyra is now. I'll pay you the 5 million credit reward, provide references that will get you any position you want, anywhere you want. Your cooperation will be noted and rewarded. And option 2? I charge you with kidnapping a member of the imperial family. You'll spend the remainder of your natural life in a detention facility so remote that sunlight is a memory. The Empress smiled. It didn't reach her eyes. Those are your options. Choose wisely. Marcus thought about Lyra in the reactor room, alone and terrified. He thought about 3 years of invisibility, of taking blame, of accepting punishment for crimes he didn't commit. He thought about how tired he was of being small. I choose option 3, Marcus said. There is no option 3. Sure there is. I formally request political asylum on behalf of Lyra Stellaron, citizen in distress seeking refuge from forced marriage. Under station law, specifically Charter Article 47, any person claiming asylum on neutral territory has the right to a hearing before extradition. That hearing must be conducted by the station authority within 48 hours. Silence filled the room like a dropped bomb. Counselor Thrace recovered first. You can't possibly. I can actually. I spent 2 hours in the archives. Article 47 is very clear. And since you've already confirmed Lyra is on this station, her asylum claim is valid the moment I file it. Marcus met the Empress's gaze. Which I just did. Verbally in front of witnesses. Legal and binding. The Empress stared at him for 5 full seconds. Then, impossibly, she laughed. How extraordinary. You found the one legal loophole that actually matters. She stood, walked to the crystal window overlooking the station. Tell me, Mr. Chin. What? Why sacrifice yourself for a girl you've known for less than 24 hours? Because she asked me to. Because she deserves a choice. Because. Marcus swallowed. Because someone should stand up for people who can't stand up for themselves. Even if it's stupid. Even if it's futile. Especially then. And if I told you that Lyra isn't fleeing danger? That the marriage I've arranged is strategic, beneficial to our empire's security? That her running is putting millions of lives at risk? I'd say that's a conversation you should have with her. Not with me. Not with guards and threats and scanners. With your daughter. The Empress turned, and for a moment, Marcus saw something flicker in those violet eyes. Surprise? Recognition? You love her, the Empress said. Not a question. I don't even know her. That's not what I asked. Marcus had no answer for that. Because the truth was complicated, he didn't love Lyra, not in any traditional sense. But he loved what she represented. The possibility of choosing yourself, of saying no to power, of finding worth beyond what others assigned you. I care about her freedom, Marcus said finally. That's enough. Counselor Thrace, the Empress said quietly. Leave us. Your Majesty, I don't think. Leave us. Thrace departed with visible reluctance. The Empress waited until the door sealed, then sagged slightly, a minute change but profound. For a moment she looked less like an empress and more like a tired mother. Do you know what it's like, she said softly, to run an empire? To make decisions that affect billions? To know that every choice you make can lead to prosperity or disaster? No. It's exhausting. Terrifying. And it leaves no room for personal feelings. I've spent 30 years turning myself into what my empire needs. A ruler who thinks strategically, who sacrifices the few for the many, who makes hard choices without hesitation. She looked at Marcus. And in doing so, I lost my daughter. You didn't lose her. You gave her away. Yes. The Empress's voice broke slightly. I did. Because that's what empresses do. We trade in people like currency. And now she's running and I don't even know if she'll let me explain, and all I can think is that I deserve this. I deserve her hatred. Marcus felt something unexpected. Sympathy. Then tell her that. Not me. Her. And if she won't listen? Then you listen first. The Empress studied him for a long moment. You really are extraordinary, Mr. Chin. Not because you're brave, bravery is common. But because you're kind in a universe that punishes kindness. That's rare. Precious even. She touched a control panel. This is the Empress. Stand down the search teams. I want a formal asylum hearing convened in 6 hours. Director Vance will preside. The claimant will be given full legal protection until that time. Your Majesty, Vance's voice came through shocked. You can't possibly. I can and I am. Make it happen. The Empress disconnected, then looked at Marcus. I'm giving you what you asked for, a hearing, time, legitimacy. In return, I want something from you. What? Convince my daughter to speak with me. Not as an empress to a subject. As a mother to a daughter. That's all I'm asking. Can you do that? Marcus thought about Lyra, alone in the reactor room waiting for him. Trusting him. I can try, he said. Marcus raced back to Reactor 3 with an Imperial escort, surreal enough to make him wonder if he'd hallucinated the entire conversation. But the guards were real, the clearances were valid, and the reactor room door opened to his credentials. Lyra was exactly where he'd left her, curled in the observation bay, looking small and scared and relieved all at once. Marcus. She ran to him, stopped just short of touching. I heard alarms, thought they'd found you, thought? I'm okay. We're okay. For now. Marcus quickly explained everything, the asylum claim, the hearing, the Empress's request. Lyra's expression cycled through shock, anger, fear, and finally something like resignation. She wants to talk? No. After forcing me into this arrangement, after ignoring every objection, after making it clear my feelings don't matter? Yeah. And you said I should? I said I'd ask. There's a difference. Marcus sat beside her. Look, I don't know your mother. I don't know your history. But I know what regret looks like and she's wearing it. Maybe it's manipulation. Maybe it's real. But either way, don't you deserve to say everything you've been too afraid to say? I'm terrified of her, Lyra whispered. Not because she's cruel. Because she's not. Because she believes everything she does is justified, necessary, right? And part of me worries she's right. That I'm being selfish, childish, throwing away responsibilities for my own happiness. Are you? I don't know. That's the problem. I don't know if I'm being brave or just running away. Marcus took her hand, the first real physical contact between them beyond necessity. Her skin was warm now, no longer cold, the luminescence pulsing steady and strong. I think, Marcus said carefully, that bravery and running away aren't opposites. Sometimes the bravest thing is to run. To say, this is wrong and I won't participate. And sometimes the bravest thing is to stand and face what terrifies you. He squeezed her hand. You've already done the first part. Maybe it's time for the second. You'll be there? At the hearing? I'll be there. Promise. I promise. Lyra leaned against him just for a moment, and Marcus felt the weight of her trust like a physical thing. Terrifying. Precious. Impossible to betray. Thank you, she whispered. For seeing me. For seeing past the princess, the runaway, the problem. For just seeing Lyra. That's the only person I ever saw, Marcus said. And in that moment, in a cooling reactor room with the universe waiting outside, it was true. Some might say he was foolish. Others would call him brave. What do you think? Tell us in the comments. The hearing took place in Arcturus Station's main conference hall, the one usually reserved for trade negotiations and diplomatic ceremonies. Someone had hastily set up a formal court arrangement. A judge's bench for Director Vance, a witness stand, seating for observers. The Empress and her entourage occupied the front row, a wall of imperial power. Marcus sat in the back, as far from importance as physically possible. When Lyra entered, a murmur rippled through the assembled crowd. She'd cleaned up, found proper clothing, a simple dress Jamie had somehow procured, but she still looked fragile. Young. Terrifyingly vulnerable, standing before her mother's empire. Director Vance called the hearing to order with barely concealed irritation. He clearly didn't want to be there, didn't want to legitimize this farce. But legal precedent was legal precedent, and even Vance couldn't ignore it entirely. This hearing will determine the validity of Princess Lyra Stellarian's asylum claim, Vance droned. The burden of proof lies with the claimant. Princess, please take the stand. Lyra did, her hands trembling slightly. State your claim, Vance said. Lyra's voice was quiet at first, then grew stronger. I claim asylum on the grounds that returning to Aurelian territory would result in forced marriage, a violation of personal autonomy recognized by 27 interstellar treaties, including the Sirius Accords, which the Aurelian Empire signed 40 years ago. Your mother claims the marriage is necessary for political stability, Vance said. That your refusal puts your empire at risk. How do you respond? I respond that people aren't chess pieces. That political stability built on forced sacrifice isn't stable, it's a powder keg. And I refuse to be the match that lights it. Counselor Thrace stood. May I cross-examine? Vance nodded, looking pleased. Marcus felt his stomach drop. Thrace approached Lyra like a predator circling prey. Princess, you speak of personal autonomy. But you're 19 years old. Your frontal lobe isn't fully developed. You've been sheltered, educated in a specific environment. How do you know this isn't simply adolescent rebellion? Emotional immaturity masquerading as principle? I don't, Lyra said simply. I can't prove my feelings are valid any more than you can prove yours are. But they're mine. And that has to count for something. Does it? When millions depend on your choices. Especially then. Lyra leaned forward. You want to know what I learned growing up in a palace? That power doesn't give you the right to others' lives. It gives you the responsibility to protect them. And that includes protecting them from becoming sacrifices to your political games. Thrace's smile was sharp. Beautiful words. Did you rehearse them? Perhaps with the janitor who's been harboring you? What? Marcus Chin. You've spent considerable time with him. A lonely man, a nobody, suddenly given attention by a beautiful princess. Don't you think his advice might be biased? Marcus felt eyes turn toward him. He wanted to sink through the floor. But Lyra's laugh cut through the tension. You think Marcus is influencing me? Have you met him? He's the most selfless person I've ever encountered. He doesn't want anything from me except my safety. Which is more than I can say for anyone else in this room. Selfless. Thrace turned to face the crowd. Or calculating. A janitor who suddenly has access to royal favor? Who stands to gain everything if the princess stays here, dependent on his protection. That's ridiculous, Lyra snapped. Is it? Mr. Chin. Thrace gestured. Please stand. Marcus stood reluctantly. Tell me, Mr. Chin. Do you love the princess? The question hung in the air like suspended gravity. Marcus's mouth went dry. Every eye in the room focused on him. Station workers who'd mocked him for years, imperial officials calculating his worth, Lyra waiting for his answer, the Empress watching with unreadable expression. Marcus stopped. Because how did you explain that you could care profoundly about someone you barely knew? That 24 hours could contain more truth than 3 years of loneliness? That love wasn't the point, humanity was? I care about her freedom, Marcus said finally, the same answer he'd given the Empress. That's all. How convenient. How? But if you're asking if I think she's extraordinary? Marcus continued, voice gaining strength. Yes. If you're asking if the universe would be lesser without her choosing her own path? Absolutely. If you're asking if I'd do this all again, knowing it would cost me everything? He looked at Lyra. Without hesitation. Thrace opened his mouth, but the Empress stood. Enough. Everyone froze. Counselor Thrace, sit down. The Empress moved to the center of the room, a singular point of gravity around which everything else orbited. I've listened to legal arguments and political maneuvering, and I'm tired of both. Lyra. She turned to her daughter. I need to say something. Mother, please. Let me speak. The Empress took a breath, and when she continued, her voice carried none of its usual command. Just exhaustion. Just pain. You're right. About all of it. I turned you into a chess piece. I prioritized empire over family. I convinced myself it was necessary, noble even. And in doing so, I lost you long before you ran. I don't know how to be a mother and an empress simultaneously, the Empress continued. I've spent 3 decades believing I had to choose. That showing weakness meant showing vulnerability and vulnerability meant danger. But watching you these past days, seeing you choose danger over comfort, choose principle over power. She smiled, tears in her violet eyes. You're braver than I ever was. Mom? Lyra's voice broke on the word. I'm not asking you to come home. I'm not even asking you to forgive me. I'm asking for a chance to do better. To listen when I should have heard you years ago. The Empress extended her hand. Not as an empress to her subject. As a mother to her daughter. Please. The silence stretched impossibly long. Then Lyra stepped down from the witness stand and took her mother's hand. The hearing dissolved after that. Vance tried to maintain order, but no one cared about legal proceedings anymore. The room erupted in whispered conversations, people processing what they'd witnessed. Marcus tried to slip out unnoticed, his habit, his comfort zone. But Torres caught him at the door. Not so fast, hero. She was grinning. You just took on an empire and won. That's not something you walk away from quietly. I didn't win. Lyra did. Because you gave her the chance. Torres clapped his shoulder. Vance is livid, by the way. I'm pretty sure he's already drafting your termination notice. Marcus laughed, surprised it didn't hurt as much as he expected. Yeah, probably. So what now? Good question. Marcus found Lyra an hour later on observation deck 7, staring out at the stars. The Empress had returned to her flagship to make arrangements. Lyra wouldn't be forced to marry, but there were political consequences to manage, alliances to restructure. It would take months. Months Lyra would spend on Arcturus Station, under asylum protection, while the galaxy's most powerful empire reworked its plans around one girl's refusal. Hey, Marcus said, approaching carefully. Hey. Lyra smiled, but it was weighted with sadness. Thank you. For everything. For saving me, hiding me, standing up for me when you had no reason to. I had plenty of reasons. No, you didn't. You had every reason to turn me in. 5 million credits, Marcus. You could have had a different life. I like my life. You clean toilets for a man who hates you. Okay, so it's not perfect. Marcus stood beside her, looking out at the same stars. But it's mine. And for the first time in 3 years I feel like I matter. Because of you. What happens now? Lyra asked. With us? I don't know. You'll stay here while the political stuff gets sorted. I'll probably get fired. We'll both figure out what comes next. Together? Marcus turned to look at her properly. In the starlight, her silver skin glowed like captured moonbeams, and her violet eyes held entire universes. She was a princess from the wealthiest empire in known space, and he was a janitor who'd sacrificed his engineering career for someone else's mistake. But none of that mattered. Yeah, Marcus said. Together. Lyra leaned her head on his shoulder, and they stood like that, watching stars, starting over, building something new from the wreckage of their old lives. Behind them, unnoticed, Director Vance watched from the corridor, his expression promising retribution. But that's a story for another time. 5 years later, Marcus Chin stood in a very different room. The workshop occupied 3 levels of what used to be Storage Bay 12 on Arcturus Station. Where there had been empty containers and forgotten equipment, now there were engineering labs, prototyping facilities, and a team of 12 engineers working on projects that would have been impossible without Marcus's unique vision. Chin Engineering Solutions, the sign read. Small, professional, honest work. Turned out that hiding a princess and challenging an empire got you noticed. Not always in good ways. Vance had indeed fired Marcus, gleefully and publicly, but in enough good ways to matter. Word spread about the janitor who'd outsmarted Imperial forces using nothing but station law and reactor room physics. Other stations started calling. Then corporations. Then governments. Within 6 months, Marcus had more job offers than he could count. He turned down all of them and started his own company instead, hiring the engineers no one else wanted, the ones who'd made mistakes, taken falls, been deemed unworthy by systems that valued pedigree over potential. His first employee was the supervisor who'd let Marcus take the fall 3 years earlier. Not out of forgiveness, necessarily. Out of the understanding that everyone deserved a second chance, even people who didn't deserve it. The company thrived. But that wasn't the important part. The door chimed. Marcus knew that chime, he'd programmed it himself, a specific sequence that only one person used. You're late, he called without turning. I'm punctual. You're just obsessive about timekeeping. Lyra entered, and the room seemed brighter for her presence. Her silver skin had fully regained its luminescence, glowing with health and happiness. She wore practical clothes now, engineering coveralls custom-made for Aurelian physiology, and her violet eyes sparkled with the kind of joy that came from finally being exactly who you were meant to be. How was your mother's call? Marcus asked. Long, complicated. But good. Lyra moved to his side, fitting perfectly under his arm. She's implementing reforms, no more arranged marriages without explicit consent. It's causing political chaos, but she's committed. Says I taught her that some battles are worth fighting even when victory is expensive. You did that, not me. We did that. Lyra held up her left hand, where a simple band encircled her ring finger. Not the elaborate jewelry of Aurelian royalty, but something Marcus had made himself, titanium from a decommissioned ship, etched with both their names in 3 languages. They'd married 2 years earlier in a ceremony attended by 12 people. Torres, Jamie, a few engineers, and via HoloLink, an empress who'd learned to prioritize her daughter's happiness over political convenience. It wasn't a royal wedding. It was better. The new project is almost ready, Marcus said, pulling up schematics on his terminal. Refugee transport systems. Self-sustaining, quantum flux shielded, impossible to track. For people who need to disappear, to run, to find safety. Because everyone deserves what you gave me, Lyra said softly. Something like that. They stood together, looking at designs that would save people they'd never meet, continue work that had started with a coat given to a freezing girl in a service corridor. Do you ever regret it? Lyra asked. Walking away from the big offers? You could be running a corporate empire right now instead of a workshop on a nowhere station. Marcus thought about it seriously, then shook his head. I spent 3 years being invisible. Then I spent 24 hours being seen. That taught me everything I needed to know about what matters. Which is, that worth isn't in titles or money or power. It's in moments of choosing to see each other truly. Everything else is just noise. Later that evening, they stood on the same observation deck where they'd watched stars 5 years earlier. Arcturus Station had changed. New sections, upgraded systems, fewer people who remembered the janitor and the princess. But the view was the same. Infinite stars, infinite possibility. Hey, Lyra said using Marcus's own word. Thank you. For what? For giving me your coat when you didn't have to. For sharing your food when you had none to spare. For seeing a person instead of a problem. For teaching me that kindness isn't weakness, it's the most powerful force in the universe. Marcus pulled her close, feeling her warmth, her presence, the steady proof that small actions could change everything. Thank you for being cold that night, he said. For being lost. For giving me a chance to be found. In the end, perhaps that was the real story, not that Marcus was extraordinary, but that he saw the extraordinary in someone the entire empire had reduced to a diplomatic asset. And in doing so, he proved what humanity had always known but frequently forgot, that worth isn't measured in titles or bloodlines or bank accounts. It's measured in the quiet moments when we choose to see each other truly. When we give our coats to strangers who are cold. When we share our last meal with someone who's hungry. When we risk everything for someone else's freedom. Those are the moments that matter. Those are the moments that change worlds. And 5 years later, standing in the light of distant stars, Marcus and Lyra had built a life from exactly those moments. A life that started with a coat. A life that proved again and again that the smallest kindnesses can topple empires. If only we're brave enough to offer them. If you enjoyed this story, don't forget to like and subscribe for more incredible sci-fi tales that will touch your heart and expand your mind. Check out our next video about an alien general who was sentenced to death, until a human librarian did something that changed the fate of 2 species forever. Tell us in the comments. Have you ever helped someone when you had nothing to gain? Or have you been on the receiving end of unexpected kindness? We read every message and love hearing your stories. Thank you for watching. Remember, you're never too small to change someone's world. Until next time, keep looking at the stars.